Hello, Calaveras County, and welcome to Mondo Calaveras. I'm your host, Mike Taylor. Well, this time, folks, we're going to catch up on what's going on in Calaveras County, at least governmentally, particularly in District 1, because my guest is District 1 Supervisor Gary Tofanelli. Gary, thanks for being here.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Mike.
You bet, Gary. Now, I guess we'll start with congratulations, strike up the band. The general plan is finally approved.
The general plan is approved. It has been approved. That's correct.
It's approved, but there are a couple of asterisks that come with that, right? Kind of explain that to folks.
Well, the general plan itself is complete, but what now needs to be done, we'll be moving into, is Title 17, which has to do with the zoning codes and the zoning laws that will go with the general plan. Now that we've designated zones within there, or designations of names of zones, that we now have to go back to Title 17 and discuss what we're going to allow in activities in each one of those new zones.
Oh, okay. So if pulling something out of the hat, rural residential must mean this.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is what you can do.
And
you have the
what you
right
can't.
to do, and
Okay.
then you have the ability for a conditional use permit. These activities will be allowed under a
Okay.
conditional use permit, and if they're not listed in there, they're not allowed within that zoning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's all got to go through, and that's Title 17 is quite extensive. There's a lot of different things that it covers.
Now, is that a kind of planning commission thing where it mulls all this over, or how does this all happen?
Yes, it will. The planning department will put together a package, and it will go before the planning commission before it comes
Just like
to the
the
board,
general
just
plan
like
did.
the general
Yeah,
plan did.
okay.
And it may not all come at once. It may be
Oh,
certain areas of
I
it
see.
that come.
Okay.
That covers a lot of different things in Title 17. So
Yeah. And Title 17, is that state code? Is that?
there will be state codes in it.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of what acceptable uses are in it will come through the county.
Oh, okay.
So.
And is that something that, through the course of that planning commission, do we end up with having all of these town hall meetings and everything again too? Or is it a little bit more streamlined than, say, the full-blown general plan process?
That's a very good question, Mike, and I'm sure there will be a couple of town hall meetings on it to get people's voices in on what they would like to see in their particular zones.
There haven't been too many arguments with the way things have been classified zone-wise.
There's not a whole lot. There have been. I've heard several people, but as a whole, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
There was a time several years ago when the designations first came out. You had the right to appeal to the planning department to have if your zone was changed significantly.
Oh, yeah.
You have the right to say, no, I would like to stay in. And I think that was hashed out a lot of times, and it was accepted. So when it got to the point where the general plan came to the board, there wasn't a whole lot. There were several people, but not a whole lot. There was one significant amount of land in the Copper area that a couple of landowners down there had some exceptions to. But the good thing about the general plan, now that it's adopted, we have the right to go back and revise it annually.
Yeah.
So,
And that's actually something that planners almost want the board to do. Is that right?
It is, to keep up to date on all the state laws and zoning codes and so forth.
Rather than
going to the process that we did when the general plan before was not updated in a process and annually, or even semi-annually or biannually. That
or even
it got
20
so
years
far out.
later.
It got so far out that it was so far out of date that it wasn't meeting any codes.
What are you happiest in the general plan as it was approved?
I think not any one thing in particular, Mike. I think just the fact that we've got it done and it's completed after the long time that it took. I was involved back in 2009, 10, 11,
I was going to say,
12.
you were here kind of the first go-around.
First part of it, and it just took so long. But, in hindsight, I think a lot of the stuff that it took time to do was to get it correct, and that we would meet a lot of the state laws that we needed to, and people had a right to have their say on it, and so I think that's part of the reason it took so long. There was a minty or harnish plan that was presented at one time, not presented to the board, and because that was not presented to the board, I never saw it. It didn't become a public document. Planning department head at that time, I think Rebecca Willis was at the time, and county council went through it and said it was not correct. So that was part of a delay also in the general plan. But just, it's done. We can move forward. We can make the adjustments going into next year and the year after that had to do, again, with Title 17 and the other things that we need to do to conform to it. Any one particular item in it, I don't point to one thing on it. I point to the whole, as a whole.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I want to ask about is some of the community plans, and more specifically, Copperopolis and Valley Springs. Both of those communities kind of felt, people in those communities got the sense that their plans were okay and could be added to this general plan. How come those weren't included this time?
That's a good question and a fair question. There's several answers. There's no one particular answer. I can't answer specifically for copper. But the Valley Springs community plan, there were two different versions at one time. What they want to call the Tofanelli plan, and then what was prepared through a COG plan. And at the time, neither one of those, when I was back in office and left in 2012, neither one of those plans could be accepted the way they were. They had a lot of work to be done to them to meet within the general plan designated zones and issues and conform with the general plan. So when I left office at that time, we did not actually have one that we could present to the board for their approval.
They hadn't met all the criteria.
Correct, and it had to go through the Planning Commission before it even got to the board. So what happened between 2012 and when I took back office in 2017, I don't know. But it didn't make it to the Planning Commission, and adjustments weren't made on it. Come 2017, at the beginning of it, when I first took office, there was a version that was dovetailed together between the two of them and presented to the Planning Department and Peter Bauer by the myvalleysprings.com people. And it was going to be placed on the agenda for the Planning Commission to overlook, but I hadn't had a chance to look at it. So I wanted to take a look at it, and there were several items in it that I didn't particularly think was correct. So even if it had been presented at that time to the Planning Commission, they had already started the EIR.
For the entire county?
Or just for the general plan. The EIR for the general plan, which started in 2016. So it was already missed the EIR. It would have had to have an amendment to the EIR in order for to be in the general plan.
To include Valley Springs.
And same way with copper, they missed that also. Why, I can't tell you the history of it. So we're looking right now, we've had one town hall meeting, Supervisor Stopper and myself, we're looking at another one. We have the blended plan up on Planning Department's website for comments at this time. So you can go on there, you can read the plan, and you can write your comments on what you like or don't like, or if you approve it or don't approve it. And it will be up there probably for another 60 days. And then we'll look at what the comments are and go through it, and then we'll have another town hall meeting, and we will go through all of those comments that are presented at the time to see what we can craft a plan to present to the Planning Commission for their approval.
Does it make it more complicated having two supervisorial districts in that one community?
No, I don't think so.
People don't really feel that separation, do they?
They don't. They don't. It's all one, and there may be some that do, but for the most part, I don't think they do. It's one community, and I have a problem working with Mr. Stopper. So no, I don't feel any pressure.
Because District 1 basically includes like the actual like town site of Valley Springs and most of what, La Cantena?
The original Valley Springs plan that was put together back in the 70s, I want to say 75, that was current, did not include Lock Antenna. It was Valley Springs proper.
Oh, okay, just sort of the town, like I was saying, sort of what I call town.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, Lock Antenna isn't part of Valley Springs. It's outside of town.
It's outside,
you know? And so Rancho Calaveras and Lock Antenna. But I know where I was going, I'm sorry, because I forgot where the actual boundary between supervisorial districts is. Is your district, District 1, includes Lock Antenna and Valley Springs, the town, and then kind of snakes down toward Burson and Wallace, right? You have a really strange district, is kind of what I'm saying. It's got all these little disparate communities.
It's if you vision Vista del Lago.
Yeah.
On the south side of Vista del Lago is District 5.
Oh, okay.
On the north side is
North
District
side
1.
is one.
Is
Okay.
1. And then it kind of, when it hits Hogan Dam Road, it kind of snakes around a little bit. And then I go all the way up around the lake and up Pool Station Road, actually to Highway 4. People don't realize that actual Pool Station at Highway 4 is part of District 1.
Yeah, okay.
And it goes all the way up here, up the Highway 49 to 4th Crossing Road. And then here in town in San Andreas, it goes to just almost to the Calaveritas Bridge.
Oh, okay.
So Calaveritas itself is in District 2. But the bridge, center of the bridge.
The bridge that we all drive under, and only a few of us have driven over.
And then it goes up here on Mountain Ranch Road, not a whole ways, goes up 49 to just about the transfer station there.
Oh, okay.
And then it goes down to Valley Springs, Campo Seco, Burson, and Wallace.
Okay, so all the way down to the county line down there. Yeah, so it's kind of geographically a fairly large district, isn't it?
It's not the largest district.
No.
District 2 is the
District
largest
2 is,
district.
much
but
bigger.
And actually District 4 I believe is bigger. But I think I am the third largest.
Yeah,
and District 5 is the smallest.
Yeah.
Because of the concentration in Rancho Calaveras.
Another element in the general plan I wanted to ask about is the housing element. And the reason I'm asking is because Calaveras County has been under fire from kind of the sort of the state watchdogs looking down on what we're doing with homeless in the county. And there's been several reports in the past few years that it seems like we have more homeless people than we sort of see. And where is the general plan kind of going with the housing, or excuse me, where is the housing element kind of fitting into the general plan now?
Well, we just updated the housing element.
Okay.
It was updated prior to being put into the general plan.
Okay.
You have to update that element separately within a time frame. I think it's every 5 years that you have to you have
something
to
like
update
that.
it. Yeah. Along with the circulation plan, which has to do with roads and your circulation for all your travel and cars and buses and trucks and traffic.
Okay.
And that has to do with air pollution control.
Okay.
So, but the housing element was just updated. I haven't heard a lot from the state complaining about homeless here.
Okay.
We did send out earlier this year, prior to the census coming in 2020, we had a grant for $50,000 to go out and count homeless within the county, and that was through the chamber and the economic development director that we have, Kathy Galino, here at the county. And there were some courses given to prep people to be census takers. At the time, it was at the town hall here. So we're working towards it. We're working forward. I saw an article just yesterday where the state had some money, and the 58 counties is going to be receiving it. What our share is, I don't know.
45 cents. Sorry, that's me being a smart aleck, Gary. Sorry.
But I think there'll be a significant amount of money for us to deal with homeless, and so that'll be coming to the board.
Because I know there was a proposal from and I want to make sure I get the name right, is the Stanislaus Housing Authority that we're kind of working with? Isn't Calaveras
Well, the
County partly
Stanislaus
working with that?
Housing Authority, people, you hear that name and you think Stanislaus County is in
Is
our
moving
county.
up here, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that's not
And-
what's happening, but
No, that's a state agency that encompasses about 5 counties: Amador, El Dorado, Tuolumne, our county, Calaveras. I'm not sure Mariposa's involved in it, but they're the authority, the housing authority for the state. And they were, we had got some money to deal with homeless, and they were going to build some low-income housing here in San Andreas.
yeah.
And the people here, I defended them because you got to look at what the percentages we have in the county for low-income housing. And part of the housing element itself has that part in it, describing what percentages in what area of the housing and where they're located for low-income housing. That's part of what you need to put in the element.
Sure.
And right now, as it stands, you go to that updated housing element, San Andreas has 64% of the low-income houses.
Which kind of makes sense because that's where everything is. That's where all the government services are. That's where the hospital is, and so I could see that. I understand the other side's mindset.
You can, but if we're building low-income housing and these people are not required to do anything, any reporting or nothing other than move in the house, they're not using services.
Okay.
They are just using the house. There's no requirements on the housing that was going to be built. If you qualified, you can move in. You weren't qualified to go find a job. You were required to go to the HHS and report there. You weren't required to do anything but move in the house.
Okay.
Okay, and as long as you could pay rent, you're there.
You were good.
Even if you couldn't pay rent, I'm sure there was some things they could do. So is it fair to house all here, or is it fair to disperse it out and have some located in different areas? There's a lot of areas in the county that can support it and have jobs available for these low income people. And so that's what I felt there was a real issue with, that we needed to look in other areas to house some of these. One of the items they were going to do is put some tiny houses right next to the library here. They were going to house people that were homeless there in these tiny houses. And it was right next to a library, right there across from the library. And the citizens had concerns with that, where that was being placed and how that was being placed, with children going there and using that library a lot. So I felt they had a basis for what they were saying. So I asked for them to relocate. I didn't say send the money back. I didn't say this or that. I said, let's look at another place to relocate these that makes a little bit more sense. Another place they were going to build some homes and put these people in, and some of them were mental health people, were right across the street from the school here, the elementary school.
Yeah,
here
about
in San
200
Andreas.
yards away.
Yeah, so I asked again for that to be relooked at. Does it necessarily, are there other areas that we can put this in that aren't directly across the street from an elementary school?
Well, that is part of the problem with San Andreas. It's landlocked.
Well, it is landlocked, but
Everything, it's sealed, and the reason it hasn't grown, I've lived here since I moved to this county, and the reason it hasn't grown is because where you see the growth stop is where the big, large land parcels begin. And so, new owners haven't come in, well, one did way back when, and proposed a subdivision right along the passing lane on Highway 49 going toward Angels Camp and all the way down toward the old cement plant. But that was, and that was pie in the sky way back then. And so I can see, and where I'm going with this is, are the other supervisors in these other areas that might need to help out with what we do with homelessness and the homeless in the county, are they seeing that, they need to kind of share the burden, if you will.
Well, they agreed with me and voted on my side.
Yeah.
So whether they have visions of anything in their district, I can't answer that question
Yeah.
for them.
Okay.
You'd have to get them on this program and ask them directly, like
Yeah.
you're asking me. But there was, funny you bring up, there was, when I left office, and it was before the crash, before I took office, an approved subdivision right here on the other side of Toyanza, in that area by the airport, going back up behind the airport and out.
Oh,
it was approved.
That's right.
But nothing. The crash came.
Yeah.
And nothing ever happened.
That's why those roads kind of don't go anywhere.
Correct. They were part of that subdivision, going to be expanded.
That's right.
But apparently, when the crash came, I don't know if they've updated their maps or paid the money to keep it going or what's going on.
And that's the part that's interesting to kind of mention in this conversation is that what the real estate market is doing drives everything in Calaveras County.
Correct.
Because if people aren't building houses, fees aren't coming in, new taxes aren't being generated, and so we end up sort of stuck economically, for lack of a better word.
But, I got to tell you, when I came back into office this time, it was very difficult before because of the crash, and we were going down because of sales tax and state keeping money and so forth, just trying to survive. When I came back this time, it was my vision before to have an economic development director. And if you look at the other counties, I know it turned out bad in Tuolumne after a long time, but when it was going good, you look at their development over there. And when you look at Jackson area, Amador County, they had an economic development director, and their sawmill shut down, and look what they have going over there. Kathy Galino, I was able to sell it to the board, and we brought her on. In just the year that she's been on, she's done a tremendous amount of work. We're growing in the Valley Springs area business-wise, and other areas of the county are growing business-wise. Even here in San Andreas, several new businesses have opened. So if you look at it that way, it's not only the housing market. I'm trying to get the economic development part of it going with businesses relocating here, and she's working on some. I can't say right at this moment, but she's working on some manufacturing companies coming here, and not just. This isn't just out. You hear this could be very soon that something's going to be announced that could be vital in moving Calaveras County towards.
Of course, having spoken as that person who's lived here for 4 decades, as soon as you say the word manufacturing, you have everyone who lives anywhere near that parcel screaming, I don't want anything manufactured near my house. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that's mitigated. And I'm not saying don't bring it. I'd love to see more jobs in this county. That's what we need. So that'll be great to see.
I think with the development and the passing of the new general plan, that's going to help, and that it may not be in an area where it's going to affect anybody. So,
great.
But the passing again, as you brought earlier, and we talked about the general plan, that's going to open doors for Calaveras County that we haven't had for a long time.
You bet.
So.
Now, real quick, we're down to about our last 5 minutes, but I want to touch bases on cannabis in the county, because the Board of Supervisors just this week, you guys approved the budget that, you shifted some money around from the general fund in other accounts, but helped to get that department, it's not a department, and help me with it because I'm not remembering the name yet. The something of cannabis control. I forgot what we're calling
Department
it.
of Cannabis Control.
Is that what it is? Okay. And so we're going to be able to probably by January start to get some of those cannabis cultivation processes, applications moving.
Well, actually, Monday is the date that the application period starts.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, that ordinance
so
becomes valid.
Great.
And the cannabis department will be open for taking applications for that. We did, on Tuesday, discuss a budget and move some money around in order to get some people in administrative offices for that.
Yeah, kind of basically to kind of help out the planning department.
Correct.
For
correct.
And we all know, and I've had Peter Maurer here, and he has said he doesn't think, we're going to get this land rush like we did the first time through. But I think it's going to be interesting to see, and talking with the sheriff too, he feels that those who are going to apply with this now pretty much have their ducks in a row and are ready to be viable businesses here in the county. So I would think that that's going to be kind of a nice feather in this board's cap with regard to, okay, we've set the rules, here's how it's going, and now we can kind of reap the rewards if they are as large as this industry proclaims they are going to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that. I'm not completely convinced of that.
Yeah.
I did not vote for this ordinance. I disagreed with the land sizes and the designations of the land sizes that they voted and approved.
Mm-hmm.
They've increased the canopies from the urgency ordinance from a half acre to a full acre.
Mm-hmm.
And the smallest size of lot that you can put it on is 10 acres. So in essence,
I thought the smallest size was 20 acres.
no, you can get a CPU for a conditional CUP for
Yeah.
a 10-acre lot, which basically under the urgency ordinance would mean it would have been on a 5-acre lot, because you're now, instead of a half acre, a full acre.
Yeah.
The 20-acre plots, instead of a half acre now, would be full, so it's like a 10-acre under the urgency ordinance. And if you look at 10 acres or even 20 acres and you look at where you place an acre, you're not that far from other property lines. And in my district, as you go out west towards what we talked about, Burson and Wallace and out in that area,
Yeah.
you have a lot of lots that are about 20 acres sizes.
Yeah.
And I had, when I first came on and back on the board in 2017, even when I was campaigning in 2016, so many complaints and so many people complaining about.
A lot of that was anecdotal. And maybe not at the number of meetings that you went to, but I heard too many people who, as soon as you started asking them questions about what they were complaining about, there really wasn't much to complain about. And I'm not suggesting that people are out crying foul, but there's a contingent in this county that just went, hell no. And it plugged its ears and it stopped listening. And we still have a member of the Board of Supervisors who has that mindset. And we saw with the tax revenues that came in for just 1 year that we can do
let's talk
pretty
about
well.
that, though. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, quick. I just
Okay, real
realized
quick.
we're getting
Yeah,
real
okay,
down on time.
Real quick, that revenue system has changed. That was a canopy size, so it didn't matter how much you sold, what you
Okay.
did with it. You went out and measured your canopy, and you paid X amount of dollars per size of the canopy. It now has changed. Measure C has changed to how much you report you have sold legally.
Okay.
And that's what it's based on. So I don't see that at this point, with only 3 dispensaries in the county, being a great deal of being sold and being reported on. I'll have to wait to see the numbers come in. As far as the mad rush coming, I know Peter says that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on Monday, this coming Monday, how big of a rush we have during that first week.
For those applications,
Yes.
you bet. I'm sorry we cut it so close, Gary.
That's fine.
But District 1 Supervisor Gary Tofanelli, thank you so much for being here. Just pay attention, folks. We can all make it work, right? Until next time, I'm Mike Taylor. Enjoy.